it was super weird because I was on the phone with my boss and she was like, Jack, we need you to go. I need you to find Wi-Fi so you can update this tracker on Microsoft Teams. And I'm just like, the
Bruh.
power is out for like everywhere, and there's no cell
Yeah.
service or internet. She's like, I need you to do it. Just do it at home and then go find somewhere with Wi-Fi. I'm just like, man, my laptop is dead. I can't do it at home.
Yeah.
But
They're so, I mean, I understand the accountability in the military like that, but when stuff like that would happen, it's like, I don't have the means to do this.
yeah, the worst part for me was when she's like, I know you guys chose not to displace, but it's really inconvenient. And I'm just like, you didn't choose to displace. You went on leave. You went on leave before the hurricane happened, and then you just happened to be away when the power went out. Like, you didn't choose to displace out of convenience. Like,
Wow.
I was like, you
Yeah.
crazy, but
They're
whatever.
nuts about
Hello,
that.
everybody. I think we'll probably have a lot more people coming. Hopefully, like I would like 5 more for my very first live ever. Um, Yay. But yeah, so I'm Jack. Most of y'all probably just kind of see me like in the comment section or posting every now and then about deals that I'm doing or deals that I'm working around. You know, there's a lot of deal rescuing that goes on in the space of being a connector and stuff like that. And whether you're a PML or a regular borrower or a connector, I'm sure you've all been in a position where you really feel like your deal needs rescuing. You need somebody to come in and structure it. So I've been working with that a lot this week. There's been a lot of deals that like shouldn't be this complicated, but you know, your hard money lenders make it complicated. Your DSCR makes it complicated. Your trying to play invisible second position gets complicated. So it's been a week for me, but yeah, so I mean, I've been a connector for about 6-8 months now. I started kind of early this year. I was mentored by Colin Yip and Eddie Charger. So if you guys know them, they're awesome. If you don't know them, they're awesome. You should get in touch. Super cool guys, super helpful. And they really kind of laid the groundwork for me to go out and kind of find success as a connector within Gator, within Sub2, whatever. But real estate's not my full-time job right now. It feels like a full-time job. The number of hours makes it a full-time job. But my actual day job, you know, I call real estate my Batman job. My day job is I'm an Army officer, so I've been in the Army for about 6 years. And I am still, you know, like I said, I'm still in the Army. So I'll be probably getting out of the Army sometime next year, with a switch to doing real estate kind of full-time. So that's, you know, briefly kind of who I am, a little bit of my experience. I have like a bunch of single family home rentals that I've acquired through using my VA loan and then moving and then renting it out. I've got a couple that I've acquired Sub2, a couple seller finance. Yes, let me, can somebody type in Colin and Eddie's names for me in the chat? Colin Yip, YEAP, and Eddie Charger, which is spelled exactly how it sounds. They're super cool. They're both in Sub2, both in Gator. So highly recommend you guys reach out if you get the chance. I kind of wanted this to be a little bit of a Q&A, right? You know, we can talk about pretty much anything. I want it to be focused on being a connector, but I know a lot of us, we're all at various different levels of experience within real estate, creative finance. There's probably people that are here that have answers to questions that I don't have, right? So I really want this to be a little bit more of a Q&A. I know we're all muted right now, which is great, but if you have a question that you want to start with, or you just want to like, maybe just want to like kind of hear the high level process that I go through before before sending a deal to a lender, you know, with me as a connector. So I'll just kind of leave it open to people to raise their hands if you have any questions up front, and if nobody raises their hand, then I'm just going to start talking. Okay then. Oh, good, Steven.
Okay, so been in Sub2 and a Gator for about 1.5 years, but my W-2 as a contractor working, supporting the military, just nonstop hours.
Mm-hmm.
So got it. Former military Army guy myself, but got into the sub-2 community, just trying to replace, I guess, my W-2 would be nice. But just getting started, and the how-tos. I was driving to the Springs to do a TDY, and I heard your podcast, and I forget who it was. It was on a creative finance, and you were like, I don't know if I should give my cell phone number. And I'm like, on I-25, I'm like, hold on, rewind. And I ended up listening to it again this week to just try and reach out to you and just get started, because the whole military housing and all that, I don't see too much of a demand here at Kirtland, here in Albuquerque. But one of the ranges at White Sands Missile Range, there's a small town that the hotels are always packed. And to me, that is a prime opportunity as far as finding a maybe 3-2 or something kind of housing. And that thing would just get booked out all the time. But just getting started and wanting to do that.
Okay. So so I'll talk a little bit about that. So I'm a part owner of a company local to here in Augusta. I'm in like the Augusta, Georgia area.
Can I say yuck?
Yeah.
Can I say yuck? That was my last duty station.
Fort Gordon.
Yeah.
It's something. But yeah, so that's where we're at, and that we get a lot of like cyber guys. They come on, the reservists and the guard soldiers. They come on TDY orders to be here for like a year or so, 6 months to a year. And you know, it sucks a little bit coming on active duty orders while you're in the guard and reserves. You got to drop everything. Sometimes you got to leave your family for the whole period if you don't get like deployed, or deployed with your family, whatever. And so the solution that we kind of present to those units is like, hey, we will go rent a house and furnish it for you. You'll be able to like bring your family. Your family can stay there. You can have pets, whatever. It creates a lot more of like a homey feel than staying at like the IHG on post or the Candlewood Suites or whatever. And so we furnish the units ourselves. They get like air fryers and like extra sets of sheets, and it's basically their house for the year, right? And then what we do is we just charge them whatever the TDY rate is, because you can Google that. You can say, hey, how much is TDY in such and such location? And if you know you're going to get a lot of people that are coming TDY during a certain time frame or all year, then you just say, hey, especially if you can get in front of the unit and say, hey, I have 20 units that are pre-furnished. They come with all this stuff that the joint travel regulation says is like required or is reimbursable, as an expense. Then you go in and say, hey, I've got all this, and I provide, like, for us, our big selling point to the units is we'll provide a single receipt solution. This might be a little bit over some people's heads. The Army is like miserable when you're trying to get money out of it, when you're trying to get paid back for travel expenses and stuff like that. And so the value for us is like, hey, we'll provide one receipt that exactly matches what needs to go into the Army travel system website to get reimbursed for travel expenses. And we've been pretty successful. We currently have 50 contracts, I think, including a 40 unit apartment complex that we rent the complex, and then we rent out the rooms individually to the soldiers. So yeah, it's a lot of it's networking. A lot of it is also kind of like starting, like if you start in your market, you're near a couple of military bases out in Colorado. If you start with like one or two that you've just, a duplex, maybe it's a 2-1 on each side, a duplex, and you're like, hey, I'm just going to furnish these, and I can get in front of the units that I know are coming. The rotations are probably pretty easy to figure out. You talk to the right person on post, you'll know exactly what unit's coming when. And you're like, okay, if I can get in front of the units, or just get in front of a couple of the soldiers, say, hey, I'm gonna clean up the receipt for you, so you can just give it to your S4 to put in the Army travel system. it makes it super easy for the unit. The unit's gonna be like, hey, who's this guy who is making this super easy for us? We want to put soldiers in front of him to make it easy for us, to make it easy for everybody. So that's kind of like the direction you would want to go to start something out there. But I think I have your number already. Did you already text me?
No.
No? Okay.
No,
Well, I put my number back.
I'll send you a message. You
Okay.
just put your text in here now.
Yeah. So, because I'd be happy to like definitely kind of connect on that and see if there's somewhere where we can kind of jumpstart that with you as like maybe our liaison in the area. That would be super cool. So.
Okay.
Yeah. Judith, go ahead.
So, I am a gator. I started end of May,
Mhm.
and I am on week 5 with underwriting. I have a business, and childcare sometimes is not that easy because I can't be on the phone all the time. I can't carry the computer anywhere or everywhere. I'm not good at computers anyway. I don't like computers. And that's a tool that I know it is essential to work, comps and underwriting, looking into houses for us when we were moving. So we lived in Dallas area, then Phoenix, back to Dallas. We lived overseas and come back. So into buying houses, I was always looking at houses, right? And maybe a month or so, my husband was like, just keep learning, you just what you're doing right now with the pro forma. And I was like, I didn't know this is called, what I was doing, pro forma and comps and square footage and all of that stuff. He used to work at a nonprofit developer where they did affordable housing, senior living, and he hired under him. This was like 20 years ago. So he knew how to do underwriting. I can't remember if it was single or multi, and hired his brother for one or the other. Anyway, but it's been a while that he hasn't done it. He's an accountant. So when getting into Gator, I wanted to just do passive income, right? To try to substitute, like replace, with children and stuff. I had to pick them up and stuff, and I have that scoliosis.
I also tried to replace my children with Gator deals.
So we have 7 children, and they have listened to me because I'm everywhere and anywhere. Like sometimes we do, more yards and pull weeds and you name it. The children need to learn what a hard job is. But anyway, there was a high demand in 2019, so I was doing childcare, and people were like, "Man, my mowing guy's not coming, my cleaning lady's not coming," and so on and so forth. And I was like, "Wow, this is demand." So I would come to the house, and I was like, "Y'all, do you want to do it?" And so they were like, "Yeah, as long as you're the face, we do it, work for you." And I mean, we grew 3 times within 2 years.
That's awesome.
So for me, I see the opportunity, I do it. Am I good at it? I don't know until I get there, right? And so I, with my husband's help, he's like, "You need to do it this way because of numbers." I was to a point where he said, "You need to get in real estate for your taxes." And I was like, no way. I was kind of like, my mindset wasn't quite there because I was raised to buy things. You have the money, buy things. And so with business and childcare, I was running a car average, so like 14,000 miles a year. So I was like, my husband bought his favorite car on my birthday. And I was thinking, I'm not going to run a 2015 Rubicon with high mileage, for this. So I will come across cars that were cheap. And in that, I thought, well, I'm saving money, right? I didn't know anything about taxes. So I learned that I can't, different taxes, claim mileage on a vehicle or do actual expenses. So instead of houses or real estate, I went on to buying cars, which I was needing them for the business. And I have my depreciation, and I'll offset all my expenses, which for me it was back then. I thought savings was more on the side of no debt, right?
Mhm.
When I had to learn that debt is savings with tax write-offs, in a business. So later on, we talked about it, and I thought, maybe I can help my husband to offset his taxes with his W-2, right? And all of that, I got into Gator learning, and so the typical sentence page says, "Hey, how can we work together?" I said to a member in the community, and he said, "Well, bring me a deal." And I was like, I didn't think Gator was for me to bring a deal. It was just fund a deal, find somebody that needed the funds, right? Or maybe I didn't get the concept right back then. And so, anyway, so again, an opportunity, right? So I wanted to do find deals where I would be able to do my own EMD.
Mhm.
I'm not sure, Jackson, had to do, I know you have a plate full, and for me, it's like sending you deals.
So, dude, I think I know where you're going, and this is actually perfect because, I'm just gonna go through my process and the process of a connector bringing a deal to either a lender or another connector, because I know what you're gonna say, and yes, so yes, I do get busy, my plate gets full, and stuff gets dropped. A lot of times, the deals that you send me is you see a post on Gator, on the Gator Facebook group, you tag me, you send it to me, you're like, hey, how about this one? And then you kind of there was one time you tried to play liaison where I'd ask you something, and then you go back and ask them something, and then it was like a game of telephone.
They don't give information. They're just, until you wait for it or ask. Yeah.
Through kind of my process. Okay, I don't have it written down or like a roadmap, but I'll make a roadmap and I'll push it out to everybody on when I upload it to YouTube. It'll be on there. So you see a deal. Okay, a borrower brings you a deal. You see a deal on Gator that you're like, hey, you know what? I know somebody that would be interested in that deal. Copying and pasting the link and sending it to a person is insufficient to be a connector. It is necessary. You have to send them the deal, the information that you have, right? You have to, because otherwise there's nothing there. But you need most likely you need more than what's posted on the Gator group. What's posted in that post, maybe it's enough to gauge interest, and maybe it's just enough to scroll past, right? And so the first thing that you want to do is you're like, okay, you see a group or a post, you're like, okay, I know somebody that might be interested in doing that deal, even if I can't do it myself right now. Okay. So what I usually do is if I see a post like that, and I'm scrolling on Gator right now, I'm going to find one. Okay. If I see a post like that, what I do is I will I'll like the post, I'll comment, tag, and I'll send a message to the person. I'll add them as a friend. I'll do all of that, kind of force them to see me, right? And if I can force them to see me, then they'll respond, and then we can start the conversation. So that's the first part. You have to get in front of them enough that they are talking to you. Once you get there, you're like, okay, hey, this is the information. This is what I'm doing. I'm a connector. I'm helping people find money for their deals or whatever. I know somebody that would be interested in doing your deal. I need more information before I can send it to them, because as a connector, if we're going to be paid for being in between a borrower and a lender, we have to do more than see deal, send deal. Okay. There's a lot of posts that say, hey, I have a deal, and then it turns out that deal is not a deal. And that's really important for us as connectors. Pretty much our entire value is in being the filter between the posts and the lenders. If you're going to have PMLs that you send deals to, they don't want to see, oh, you found a post and you sent it to me, or you tagged me. They want to see, oh, you found a borrower, vetted the deal, and then after deciding that it passed some basic underwriting, then you pass it to me as the lender, to do probably a little bit more in-depth underwriting, right? There's only so much you can do as a connector board. They're like, do you even have the money to fund this? But you do enough to say, okay, you know, I put this on a napkin and it passes the sniff test. I can start marketing it to my lenders while I do a further, like more in-depth due diligence or underwriting on this particular deal. Okay. And so I think that's probably, I probably should have like said that a little while ago. You know, like you said, I do get busy. This is my first time doing something like this in front of people. Kind of walking through the process of like, hey, this is, you know, what you need to be doing as a connector. So I hope that kind of answers that particular question. But let's actually talk about you have a question?
So I do not, I don't want to come across wrong. What I'm saying is like, okay, the first thing for me is like when I want to help somebody, I just think about it, it's like, man, he probably is in the middle of 2-3 deals in a meeting, and I don't have this concise, right, to throw it at you. And so sometimes I already contacted people and just like, please, you know, first position, second position, you know, what is it needed for, you know, send me an email with more details. And so then I pass it to you. Meanwhile, I'm hoping they're going to send me more information so I can send it to you, right? I don't know either, like, if it was, you know, for you to get it and kind of sort of give it a glimpse through messenger, email, or text. And
I think you don't know how to underwrite, right? So
yeah, and I don't know how to underwrite. So the other thing is like, Jackson, I really don't know if I'm a connector. I don't even know if I want to be a connector. You know, all I saw is like, right now, somebody's trying to sell a car. I'm trying to help them out. I put a post and I have 6-7 people there have been shown interest, and then it's not my car. I don't know anything. I'm a mechanic. I'm just trying to connect them in a while. They need to meet. He doesn't speak English. I don't know if the other person speaks Spanish. So I'm kind of in the middle, right? I'm not doing it so I can get paid, but I heard that I can get a fee for that kind of stuff. But at the same time, like being connector, I know that like you have to go through the whole process. And yet I don't have experience, I think, unless.
So let me help you a little bit. Okay. So in the chat thing, in the messages, I just posted basically when somebody brings me, if somebody like a borrower says, hey, I see that you do gap lending or you can help with gap lending. I'm looking for X dollars to do my fix and flip. It's almost always a fix and flip, guys. This is basically what I say I need, right? The very first thing I say I need is, hey, I need you to tell me what's your purchase price, what's your renovation costs, and what's your ARV. Because just based off of those 3 numbers, you can basically figure out if it's worth your time to look at. Okay. And let me explain. I'm going to pull up my calculator. Because calculators are great and they're the biggest filter that they're the only filter you'll ever need is a calculator. That's not true, but boom. Okay. Somebody comes to me and they're like, Jack, I have a deal. The purchase price is 200. Okay. The renovation cost is 75. Okay. And the ARV is 400. That means all in, you know, before holding costs, before whatever, they're at 68%, 69% loan to value, assuming you're getting a gap lender. Okay. Let's say you get a gap lender for 50K, because that's going to be their purchase, their down payment, probably, you know, somewhere between 30 and 50K. They're going to be at 69% loan to value. That's not bad. That's pretty good. Okay. It's loan to ARV. It's not loan to as is value. Gap is inherently more risky than first position, because you're coming in second position at probably over 100% loan to as is value, because you're covering the down payment and probably some closing costs, right? The as is value is always the purchase price, because that's the hard money lender has pretty much decided that's what it is. And the hard money lender will never lend more than 75% loan to ARV. So what you got to watch out for is if that hard money lender comes in, and let's say the purchase price is 250, okay? Well, the renovation is still 75 and the ARV is still 400. Okay. The hard money lender is gonna be like, hey, this deal sucks.
Yeah.
and you're gonna get a deal like this, and all you had to do is add the purchase price to the renovation cost and say, hey, I cannot connect on this because it's too high, right? You never ever, unless there's like a lot of cross collateral or some other kind of incentive, maybe it's more of a PMP deal. You never want to bring a PML to something that you know for sure they cannot get their money out of, right?
Yeah.
I just talked to a lady today. She has a property listed in Dallas that's been listed for 6 months. Comps support the price. The It hasn't sold in 6 months. She's had to extend it with her HML like twice. And that sucks. Like, I feel like that's miserable, and I'm miserable listening to that story. You do not want to connect a PML on a deal where that's the situation, because where she's at right now, she's at about 77% total, like, loan to whatever the value was supposed to be when she started it. Which 77 can be done. You can get lenders that'll go up to, like, they're like, okay, fine, 77 is not that far off from 75. It's pretty much impossible to get like more than probably 77% on a bridge, unless it's a lender that you already have a relationship with. Maybe you're just doing it as like a, hey, I'm just getting my renovation costs out, something like that. But for me, I don't connect on anything that's going to be higher than 75% loan to ARV. Because I know for sure, like, I'm on a deal right now where I'm actually coming in as a experienced sponsor for somebody that I connected PML with. And the deal is just taking a little bit longer than planned. The PML isn't due yet, but it's due next month. And this property is in Florida, so there was hurricanes, so they couldn't get appraisals. Lots of stuff going on. I'm coming in as an experienced sponsor with my HUDs to get him 75% cash out on a refinance, so that he can pay my PML out, right? And I'm okay with doing that because it's Florida. I can drive down to Florida. It's like a 6-hour drive, which sucks, but it's not that bad, right? So like at 75% loan to ARV, I know if I have to come in and rescue the deal as the connector, like, I can protect my private money lender, and do that. That works for good, bad borrowers, as Mel Palmer would say. Borrowers that did not mean to screw up, but for situation outside their control, it's not going well, right? So 75% loan to ARV should be like that. You shouldn't like 75%. You should like 73%, but 75% is okay, because you can come in. The borrower might not make money on it, but you can rescue your PML, which is more important than the borrower making money, right? And typically, if your borrower is like a good person with integrity, they agree protecting the PML is more important than them making money. So, but that's your napkin underwriting. Like, you can throw any three numbers at me for purchase price, renovation cost, and ARV, and I'll know for sure whether it's even worth like spending more than 5 minutes telling the person whether or not I can get it funded, right? If somebody says, hey, Jack, I have a $500,000 purchase price, and I have $200,000 reno, and I have a $850,000 ARV, I'm gonna say, hey, that sucks. Can't do it. You're at 82% loan to ARV if I get you gap. I can broker the hard money loan. You're probably gonna get like 80% loan to cost instead of 90% because the numbers don't work. But I can get you the hard money loan, and you got to bring your own cash to the table. And that's not a bad. I mean, 150 grand is not like a bad spread, right? Assuming you lose 10% on the sale, you might still make 70K. That's a whole house here in Augusta is 70K. But it's not refinanceable, and that's the important thing. The important thing is that there's always an exit for your private money lenders. So like I said, unless there's some kind of like additional incentive, equity or something like that, I don't go above 75% for gap PML, right?
Okay.
And so I mean that's all the underwriting that you need to do before you send me a deal. If you're gonna send me a deal and you've gotten that far, and you're like, hey, this is at 74.5% of ARV if I fund the gap, like, these are the numbers that Jackson said he likes. You can bring them to me, and I will be like, hey, thank you. Like, you don't have to have done anything else. You didn't have to check the scope of work. You didn't have to ask anything about the hard money lender. I will carry the rest of the deal and I will like for people that do like just that amount, I give them like 10% of my connector fee as like a referral. If that's all you did is the napkin underwrite, I'll just give you 10% of my connector fee if it gets funded. And so as far as like the underwriting, the napkin underwriting is the easy part. It gets a little bit more difficult if you pull up like an ROI calculator. I'll pull up one of mine for deals that I have brought some of my own PMLs onto recently. Where like I've started doing flips with my PMLs because who's going to protect my PMLs better than I will? I'll pull up one of my ROI calculators right now, where like it's a lot more in-depth underwriting. It's like accounting for holding costs, and it's accounting for like all kinds of stuff. Where that's not the point of your napkin underwriting. Your napkin underwriting is like, is this worth my time to look at? Once you decided that it's worth your time to look at, then then you go actually and underwrite it, or you pass it to Jackson to underwrite, or you underwrite it and you pass it to Jackson like, hey, look, I threw this is the profit calculator, this is like the borrower's experience, these are his HUDs, I have verified all of these things. Well, now I'm splitting my connector fee with you 50-50, right? And that's like, because like there's a lot of value in doing all that vetting first. I'm still going to look through it, but by that point, if you've done all of that, gathered all that information and looked at the HUDs, then that's a lot of work that I don't have to do. And I can look through it, like I can do a napkin underwrite on it, check out the profit calculator to make sure you're not crazy. And then I can bring that to my lender, and we get it funded. We split the connector fee 50-50, right? So let me find a profit calculator really quick.
Do you remember?
Go ahead, Judith. Sorry.
Remember the first person that first is like, well, and I get it, they're just gonna fill in how they will approach me, and I thought, okay, I need to know what it is, details, whatever. And then so I remember that post where you were needing some money, and suddenly, I mean, you were raising a lot, and I was like, Jackson, right? And then later on, as I contacted you, then I do not know if she had the information there or she was waiting for my response. But then, I copy her text to you, and then you said it right away. It's not a bridge, it's a gap, I think it was. So, before I knew I could have sent it to you, I could have looked at it with my husband and then say, she thinks it's a bridge, but then it's not. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like,
and so that part of that's kind of like a vocabulary thing. It's like some people say bridge and they mean gap, and some people say gap and they mean bridge. When I think gap, it like in my head, gap is like that second position, or I need money yesterday because it was supposed to close tomorrow, and your money is going to be replaced in 5 days, but it's longer than a double close. That's gap, right? For me, a bridge is like it's a regular hard money loan that you're going to sit on for at least a month. That's a bridge.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the difference for me, right? Derek, you had a question?
Yeah, buddy. It was more back toward your experience. If you want to circle back the experience partner, I had
Sure.
some questions about risks and what the pros and cons were on that type of thing. But we can circle back to that if that's easier for you.
Yeah. Let me just go through this profit calculator on this deal right now that I'm doing in Decatur, and then we'll talk that, okay? Because that's a cool one. It's a newer thing. Pace hasn't done like trainings about sponsoring, credit sponsoring, experience sponsoring, anything like that. But I do want to talk about it because I should be making like 5 to 10 grand on that deal, which is kind of fun, right? Because all I'm doing is showing my HUDs.
Yeah, definitely. And then like with the credit sponsoring, same thing. You're making a nice percentage just for putting your credit score up.
Exactly.
I mean,
Cool. That's all. Just your credit score.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Okay. So this deal I'm closing next week. Nobody going in and steal it. This is kind of the specs on it. It's a 4-bed, 1-bath. We're planning to add a bathroom. But this calculator I got from another Gator. And I'll have to find his name because I forgot. Every time I need to find it, I go on my Facebook messages and I type in the word Etsy, and the message comes up because he's selling this more in-depth calculator on Etsy. I made a couple of edits to it, but it's largely the same as when he found it. when he made it. So I put in my purchase price here, my ARV. I had to pull comps. I don't have them listed, but I pulled comps. And I'm happy to go through that on like either later or on another call, depending on where this call goes. I put in my estimated rehab. This calculator is already telling me my mortgage, my first position loan balance, my second position balance, which for me includes the PML profit, right? So for a Gator, right? I put this one as a Gator loan because it's a flat percent. The loan amount is 45,000. The return is going to be 9,000. And that's going to add up to 54,000. So I'm accounting for all of this. This is my 90% of purchase price plus the renovation cost. This is my total loan balance, right? And remember, I'm including my PML's profit in this number. If I don't include my PML's profit, then again, I do not know that I can refinance and get my PML out cleanly, right? Because you don't want your borrower to have to bring money to the table. They're getting a PML because they don't have money, right? And so you don't want them to have to bring money to the table to refinance your lender out. That creates a situation that nobody really enjoys. So I'm including my lender's profit here. Total loan balance is this. This number is, when it says estimated equity, that's kind of just like the ARV minus the total loan balance. But this is the important number. And I haven't figured out how to make Excel do this for me, but I would really like this to turn like red, amber, green, or red, yellow, green, based on the number. But I'm at 73.5% combined loan to ARV. This is a safe deal for my PMLs because once the work is done, right? Even if we don't add a bathroom, even if 400 was the low end of our estimated ARV, if everything goes fine on the renovation and then I can't sell it, it's not selling, market slows down indicators, so nobody's buying houses because rates are 18% because I don't know, Russia invaded Puerto Rico. I can refinance my lenders out. The appraiser is going to come out and he's going to say, okay, these are the comps that I'm using for this appraisal. Oh, you're good to go at 400,000 valuation. So we're going to give you 75% loan to value. We're going to roll your closing costs into it. You might have to bring $5 to closing, and my lenders are out with all of their money, including their profit. That's a win. Did I sell the house and make money? No, not necessarily. I'm still sitting on it. I'm still paying my holding costs, which start to add up. This one calculates your holding costs for you. So every month that this goes up, makes it more expensive. See, now it adds 2,000. Adds 2 more thousand. Holding this for 8 months is going to cost me $20,000 on the hard money. But it's okay because I got my private money lenders out and I still have it listed. And they get to say, hey, Jack took care of us on this deal. The market slowed down, so he wasn't able to sell it very quickly, but he was able to refinance us out with all of our profit, and we appreciate that. And so they are open to doing another deal with me later on. And so like if you do like all of this on whatever calculator you use, honestly, it doesn't matter if it's this one, it doesn't matter if it's one that you got from some fix and flip community that your mentorship part of, whatever. If you do like this level of analysis, you have your comps and you say, hey, Jackson, I got this deal. Here's like the information. Here's all of the stuff about it. Like here's the first position term sheet. Okay. If you say, hey, here's the first position term sheet, like having this level of information when you come to either another connector or your lender, that's valuable, right? That gives them enough information to decide if it's too much risk for them to look at, or if it's like, okay, this is enough. This is like good enough that I can talk to the borrower, put us on a phone call, Google Meet, Zoom, whatever, and decide if I want to do this deal after a conversation with the borrower. So like, and this first position term sheet is really important on PML deals because you don't always know, okay, well, if the purchase price is this and the renovation cost is this, that's not always the whole thing. Some of them have the option to increase the amount of the construction draw. Well, if you can increase the amount of the construction draw from 50 to 70, that means I can add 20K onto this part of the loan, which will change the level of security for my lenders, right? If this turns from 35 to 55,000, well, now I'm at 78% loan to value. So you gotta see that term sheet, and you gotta ask like, hey, can this number go up during the deal, right? For this one it can't, right? And this is a great lender. But like if you do all this, then one, you've done a lot of homework for your private money lender that you're bringing the deal to, and two, you have done a lot of homework before bringing the deal to me, so I can bring it to my private money lenders, right? Or any other connector that you decide to JV with. So that's kind of the level of analysis that that you should be doing if you're expecting to like split a connector fee 50-50, or if you're expecting to get paid as a connector where you're between the borrower and the lender and you're the only one. But again, if you just do the napkin underwrite, like, oh, Jackson said he only does stuff that's 75% loan to ARV. Well, I found this deal and it's 73%. Well, now, you bring it to Jackson and say, hey, I haven't vetted this, but based on the numbers, this is kind of what he said. I know this is kind of your thing that you like to do. So I'd like to, I want to bring it to you to take a look at. That for me, that's like enough to share part of my connector fee with you, right? If you did the whole thing, then like I said, we're splitting it 50-50. I'm happy to do that. But I mean, getting paid as a connector is it's a lot of work. But it's not like complicated that much. Once you kind of figure out like how to underwrite, figure out what your lenders are looking for or what your JV partners are looking for, it becomes a lot. It becomes pretty simple. It's just a lot of legwork to go through the underwriting, right? But that's our job as a connector, is doing that legwork for the lender, so that we're filtering that for them. Stephen, you asked what lessons in Pace's course teach this. The underwriting semester in Gator kind of does. They go through some pretty good underwriting like best practices, but a lot of it is just experience and talking to your lenders, find out what do they like to lend on, finding out like, hey, what's your risk tolerance? Because some lenders are like, hey, I'll do like an 80% loan to ARV, but I want cross collateral. It's like, okay, that's reasonable. You're going to go up to a point where you basically can't be refinanced out. They got to have another property to attach a lien to. Maybe they are like, hey, this is going to be like it's a fourplex that they're going to fix and then burr or whatever, but they're looking for like 78% of ARV for this gap. And I'm like, well, maybe you offer them like lasting equity in the property after the refinance, right? Maybe you have to give them a lower return in order to make the number work for the refinance. But to make it worth their while, you're like, hey, but also you get 15% equity in the property until I buy you out. And so now they're getting 15% of the cash flow forever, or until you buy them out. And also they got their like 10% return or 15% return on their PML. So there's a lot of different ways to structure it. And that's what's great about being a connector, is that if you have money to put in a deal, then you're in front of the deal first, right? And if you don't have the money, or or it's not the type of deal that you focus on, but you have lenders that do, then you're like, hey, this isn't the deal for me, but let me just underwrite it. I'm gonna decide if I would do it if I was that kind of lender, because some lenders just don't do second position, and that's fine. That's the best way to protect yourself, is to never be behind somebody else. But if you know somebody that does do second position, well, now you can take this deal to them, say, hey, I underwrote this. It's at like 74 or 73% of ARV. Would you JV this with me? I'll do the first position, you do the second. That's a way to be a connector. You can work an extra couple of points, just charge your borrower a couple of points, and say, hey, that's the connector fee for finding you a gap lender. So those are all like different options too. But Derek, you wanted to talk about credit and experience sponsoring. There hasn't been any trainings, or not a lot of trainings on that, right? So I'm kind of making it up as I go, trying to figure out like, hey, what are some best practices? What's the best way to keep myself safe? because like I said, it's just your credit score, but it's just your credit score, right? Which we all know your credit score matters. Even though we're in the community that says it doesn't, you can't get business credit with no credit. So, or with horrible credit. So you need to protect your credit score. You need to protect your identity too. It's part of your identity, right? As far as like having your identity stolen, your credit score correct. And so for me, when I'm credit sponsoring, I'll experience sponsor pretty much anywhere, because when I experience sponsoring, the implication is that this is a non-guarantor or like no personal guarantee type of loan. So it's based entirely on the asset. Nobody is personal guaranteeing it. It's just like if somebody defaults, they take the property. Okay, fine, too easy. I will the deal in Florida is exactly that. I know the broker. I confirmed with the broker that's doing the hard money refi. I'm like, hey, I need to know that I'm not like personal guaranteeing this, because if it is, then I need to charge way more than just like a point, right? 'Cause that's what I'm charging him. I'm charging him like a point on the refinance, and then some more when he eventually sells it. But I'm showing my HUDs. I'm making it possible for him to not default, and so for that, I'm being paid a point up front, and then a couple points when the property sells, right? And that's fine. Because I'm getting written onto his like LLC for him to show these HUDs as part of the business's experience. That those are less risk, right? It's like, I mean, I don't really know the implications of a lender like foreclosing on a property that there's no personal guarantee on. It's like, did Jackson default? I don't think so. I don't really know, right? But I put enough of a protection in there. It's like Jackson didn't personal guarantee this. The majority owners on the LLC would be more responsible before Jackson was. And that's kind of the way I'm looking at it. That being said, like I'll do experience sponsoring anywhere. It's like, hey, I need to see 10 HUDs total between everybody on the LLC in order for me to give the best leverage for this fix and flip loan. It's like, okay, well, by the end of November, Jackson's going to have like 8 fix and flip HUDs or something. And so the borrower only needs to have 2. The borrower only needs to have 2 fix and flips done ever in order to actually get that 90% loan to value with whoever his lender is, right? And so like the experience sponsoring is valuable because it gets your borrowers higher leverage. It gets your partners really. It gets them higher leverage on their fix and flip loan or their DSCR loan if they're getting a DSCR. Those are fun because you get to take equity. You're like, hey, you're gonna use my HUDs to get this DSCR loan. I want 10% of the cash flow for a year or something, and then you just take me off the LLC, and I also want my point up front. Now where it gets dicier, and this is where there's a lot less people that are doing it, but everybody's kind of doing it a little differently, and that's credit sponsoring. And for anybody that's not familiar with what that is, it's basically co-signing on the loan as a personal guarantor. Like you're bringing your credit score to the deal for your credit score, and basically saying, hey, like this is gonna, if somebody defaults, Jackson's taking a credit hit, right? And that's risky. That's very risky. And so you need to be able to, for me, like I only do that in the states of North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida down to like Orlando, Tampa area. And that's because that's basically my road trip distance. If I had to go take control of a property because the partners or borrowers that I credit sponsored decided to ghost or got like knocked out by a train or something, like I would be able to go down to the property, like figure out the situation. I'm on the LLC. I'm a majority owner on the LLC. If I have to do that, I'm going to be 51% owner of the LLC. We do a profit split that has nothing to do with the ownership on the LLC. I do 20% of the profit to me, 80% to the operator. That's fine. I'm not operating. I'm not doing all the work. I didn't even find a hard money lender. But I'm taking 20% of the profit split because of the risk that I'm taking to my identity. And then also, I'm 51% owner on the LLC, so that if I have to take control of the deal, I can either quit claim the property to myself, to like my actual LLC, or maybe they didn't ghost me, they just like ran out of money. It's like, okay, well, we can we can figure this out. I don't have to completely kick you off. At least you're being honest that you ran out of money or whatever. That would still suck. Like, why did it take this long to get sold? But that's also my fault for not underwriting it at that point, right? So that's kind of some of the things to consider when you're doing your like a credit sponsorship deal. It can get people a lot better leverages, a lot better rates on a DSCR, better leverage on a fix and flip. You can also just find a lender that doesn't care about credit score. You know, that's another option. It doesn't really work for a DSCR, but there are like fix and flip lenders that'll do it. But yeah, so that credit sponsoring is like risky. But it, you know, it can be lucrative. 20% of the profit on, you know, a $500,000 house that you have 350 all in, you know, that's 30 grand, you know, when it sells.
Have,
So,
have
I do
you
this.
have you had a worst case scenario on that yourself?
I have not. That's what I'm saying, is that like there's not, I don't know anybody that has, because there's not enough people in the community that are doing it for it to have gone bad yet, I guess. I mean, everybody's like, people are more cautious with doing credit partnership deals than they are with doing PML deals, which is, I think they're about equal. Like, honestly, the level of risk that you are taking on for yourself is pretty similar if you're putting 50K into a deal versus if you're putting your credit score onto this borrower, right? Like, you're allowing somebody to use your credit report to go get a loan, and it's going to report on your credit if they default. That's really high risk. I'd hate to lose 50K, but I'd rather lose 50K than have a foreclosure on my credit report. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's a
Um,
fun when people talk about it, risk is not risky, and then people hesitate to jump in, and then I think it's more risky not to jump in. You know, if you do structure it right and you seek for
if you
people.
if you have, so there's risk mitigation. If you've been through the safety semester, Mel Palmer talks about like risk mitigation. There's no such thing as zero risk. Even like EMD deals, like they're probably the closest thing to zero risk that you can get, besides like just referring people to hard money lenders and getting like paid $200 for it. EMD deals are like very low risk, and they're still not zero risk, right? Like, a title company might not know what's going on and not want to play ball. They might release the EMD to the seller because they didn't read the escrow instructions. There's stuff that can happen, right? In Texas, if you didn't get your mutual release thing signed, like, your earnest money is there for the next 5 years. Have fun. Even if you did, like, if sometimes title companies won't accept it if it's signed before the actual cancellation. And so like there's still risk involved, right? And so like there's risk mitigation, but there's no real like risk prevention, right? It's risk acceptance, and how do I reduce that? As a PML, you're accepting the risk that, like, hey, you know, a meteor could hit the borrower with this. He could have an 850 credit score, 800 HUDs, and it should be like a no-brainer rehab, and then a meteor hits the borrower and the property on the same day, and you have no idea how to get in touch with them, and there's nothing to foreclose on. It's a risk. It's low risk that happens, but that's kind of something you just kind of, you know, that's possible, right? It's unlikely, but it's like, if that happens, it's like, yeah, that sucks. Like, what are you gonna do, right?
Like for
I mean,
me,
you can take life insurance policies on your borrowers. I have a deal that I'm getting a black eye on from my borrower. I was in PMP. I brought money. He never made it perform. It's been a year. We're trying to exit. There's no equity in the property because of the sub two. And then he defaulted on the sub two because he ran out of money because he never got it rented. It's a whole thing. And so I'm getting like black eye over it, but you know, it's just like, what are you gonna do? It's like, well, I took control of the property. I'm trying to assume the loan and catch up the arrears so that I can at least keep that interest rate. And I'm just gonna like carry on. It's like, did I foresee the borrower leaving a property vacant for 18 months? Absolutely not. A property that should have been rented within a week. I had no idea that it was going to be vacant for 18 months, but that's how it happened. So
being on the connector again, I don't run away from work, when you say it takes a lot of work and whatever. But if I don't have the skill or I'm not gifted after a while, which again, I'm just trying to find EMD and transactional. And I just got wrapped up in all this connecting because I thought, okay, if I bring somebody a deal, then essentially, hey, I'm bringing you a deal, and with the purpose of me fund EMD. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So, but it hasn't happened. So that's why, not that I went that route, it seems like I gravitated to that path of connecting. So in like right now, I have 2 people that are having a hard time selling their homes. One I contact, well, this is a funny thing. So they put it on a platform. I don't know if you know Nextdoor. And they're like, hey, this house is for sale, it's going to be open house, yada, yada. And then I contact him and I said, are you the owner? I thought he was a realtor. And he said, no, I am the owner, but, I want to sell the house quick. So in this case, I thought, well, I either direct to seller or direct to agent. And many times the agents are like, no, I want my commission covered and I'm not going to bring that to him, or I'll let him know, but they never do. And so now I touch base with him this morning, and he's like, I'm ready to jump on a call. I wasn't able to sell my house for different reasons. So I contacted this other sub-team member, and she's like, let's jump on a call. And the other one, she's in a bad situation, needs to sell her house. She doesn't have family in town. She wants to be with them. She cannot afford the payments anymore. She has a 3% on her mortgage, but she needs some money to get back on her feet. Now, the agent said, well, she wants about 80,000 and then plus covering my commission. With Brittany, what happened was that she again posted on this app Nextdoor. And my first question was, are you the owner or the realtor? And she said, I'm the owner, but my realtor suggested that I could also post it on here to sell it faster. And I was thinking, you sign a contract with an agent, she's not doing the job, she suggested you to help her out with her job, right? And so, which is typical for me. I don't mind agents bound by the contract to get their commission, but the seller herself is the one that I've been contacting with. So my conflict on what I'm learning is that, first of all, the seller said, yeah, I'll get with my agent. Well, she said, this is what I want. And I said, okay, I'm going to contact your agent ethically, and then I'm going to let her know of the options. She said, okay, keep me posted. So I contact the agent and said, hey, I'm in contact with the seller. She posted this, but I want to contact you. And she flat out just said, no, she's not interested. Is this about the subject to, that's not for the situation. And then after 3 weeks, she goes like, hey, yeah, I think it will work, but she needs this much money and plus my commission. So I am debating whether, in effort to do my first EMD, I am connecting this deal with somebody as a lead, and supposedly I'm going to get paid by bringing the lead with an effort for me to find the EMD. You know what I'm saying? It's like I'm getting wrapped up with all of those things just to trying to put the work so that I can fund an EMD. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know what's my best way, not out of it, but my best way to move forward.
There's a lot. As far as for you're asking how to move forward on like finding an earnest money deal.
No. Well, what
Did
do
I
you mean?
misunderstand that?
Hold on.
Okay.
Well, the one thing that you have spoken about is about the terms to see if it works, in all of that, because there's no way for me to fund an EMD if the deal is not a good deal, right?
You get EMD. So EMD deals are kind of funny, because it's all. I kind of feel like it's all make believe. The EMD deals are like, if you're doing a real like wholesale or permanently soft refundable EMD, like all you have to do is receive the deal and find somebody that has the money to fund it. you ask the borrower, hey, what's the max you're willing to pay for this earnest money? Borrower says 35%. You're like, okay, you go find a lender, Judith, you're going to go find a lender for 25% return. Guess how much you just made?
Yeah.
You just made 10% of whatever the earnest money was.
Yeah.
Like as a connector, like if you stumble upon an earnest money deal and you're the one that gets it funded, like it's so much fun. It's all made up because it's like the earnest money. It's like we said, it's probably like the lowest risk of deals where money is moving, right? Where like somebody's personal money or credit card money or whatever we're using is moving. It's the lowest risk of them all, right? So it's like if you're going to do an earnest money deal and you're doing it correctly and it's refundable and it's or something like that, you know, you got your mutual release signed, all that. Like if you find it, then know what your lender is going to ask, know what your borrower is offering, and give yourself the spread. That's nobody's going to complain. Your lender knows what they're expecting. Your borrower knows what he's like willing to pay. Literally nobody's going to complain if you make the spread, right?
Yeah.
Because ultimately it's like I have some connects that like I will JV EMD deals with because I don't have like I kind of look for like bigger earnest money deals. If I'm looking to look for earnest money deals, I'll do like a 3,000 earnest money deal myself. But if I prefer to just like find somebody looking for like 50 grand or more, and then I just bring it to people that I know will fund it, and I know that they want 25%, they want 30%, and I'm like, hey, borrower, like I need to be at 40% to get this done.
Mhm.
And they're like, yeah, you know what? That's fine. This is a $1 gazillion deal. I can spend 40% on the earnest money. That's 20 grand on 50K. And so you go find a lender for 50K. You say, hey, you're going to get 30% back. So that's, I don't know what number that is. 15 grand. And then Judith gets 5 grand. Like EMD deals as a connector, it's silly. That where we make like our reputation is on the gap lending deals, like our PML deals that are not like they're not EMD, they're not double close. Where we make or break our reputation, and like where people decide whether they want to work with us or fund deals that we bring them, is on how we treat them how we treat the borrower and the gap and like the underwriting process during the PML deals, the real PML deals, where money leaves escrow, it stays attached to a property for 3, 4, 5, 6 months. And what are you doing to help your lender get out of it, right? Like my lender that I brought to that deal in Florida that I'm experience sponsoring on, like not only am I helping the borrower whose credit score sucks get my lender out of it, right? But also I have brought that PML onto my own deals as like a second position on like sub twos. You shouldn't connect on sub twos. Like sub twos, like I just don't even bother with it because I don't know anybody that wants to stay tied up for a long time. And there's not a lot of clear exits, right? If you there are certain situations where it's like, okay, you've seen the borrower repeatedly have good success with like having one of his regular PMLs buy out like the gap lender on a sub 2 deal. And those, like if you've built that relationship, it's okay. They're still not great, right? And a lot of lenders just don't like that. And that's, and don't bring them to lenders that don't like that. If borrowers aren't willing to offer cross collateral, know what your lenders are expecting. If your lenders expect cross collateral, especially when it's a second position on a sub 2, because we all know what makes a good sub 2 is no equity and a low interest rate. Like if you got no equity, and you get a PML to cover your entry costs, like you have to have a really good relationship, or the lender has to be, there has to be like a good track record with that borrower of like, hey, my PMLs always come in after the asset is stabilized. I just need the gap to stabilize it. And we have a track record of this that you can show, and references, collect those references and talk to those references that the borrower is giving you for like, hey, these are lenders that I've used before on these deals, and they will vouch for how it went, and they're Gators or they're sub 2 students or whatever they are, whatever communities they're in. Like that's where you're going to make your reputation as a connector, is like doing all of that and knowing what your lenders are looking for beforehand.
The crazy thing about it was when I came across Pace, I was like, I just want to do direct to seller.
Mhm.
And then it's like, you got to get on subject too. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be good at it. So with all I have it going on, I thought, well, how about I start just on Gator, right? It's not so much because I don't like the risk or, I just want to do the work. It's like, I'm going to start little by little. And the more I learn, who knows, I can just jump into sub too. But then, yeah, and I had somebody that I was like, hey, I saw your post, you just closed on a house. And I was thinking, hey, on your next deal, if you need an EMD. And they say, well, normally the EMD is covered by the buyer. And I know that, but what works better is like with wholesalers, they have all their money tied up or, even just regular investors. And then, when they said I need an EMD, it was in my thinking back then, it was just for, purchasing a house, but EMDs are for, like the transactional double closing. And so then it's like, okay, this is more than what I thought. So I need to go easy. And I haven't rushed about doing my first deal. I'm basically just wanting to connect with people, learn what they do, how they do it, and see if I can be of a value to them. Like in your case, when I met you, I was like, maybe I can do it. I'm getting the hang of it. No, I know, and not not what he needs. And okay, he needs different things. For me, it's like if I want to bring value, I don't need to bring you more work than what you have going on. And again, like, if I put it on a napkin, probably from there I start going on and maybe getting better hang of it and just maybe somehow I nail it, right? And stay away from the EMDs and move on something else. I don't know.
I mean, so who has a question? Sorry, somebody said something. Cheryl?
Okay, yeah. And a second? Okay.
Sure.
You want me to wait or talk?
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay, cool. So, what you're saying, I don't know your name because it says Joseph there, and I'm assuming you're not Joseph.
It's
Yeah.
Judith.
But I'm a little confused as to whether that realtor story you had, are you looking to buy that property yourself?
No, I just, so instead of doing sub 2, being a member on sub 2, I didn't know, if I was going to be good at that. So then I decided to just go on EMD Gator to see, if there's something that I could learn the right way and then take off from there and see what I would be more interested on doing, which everything seems really interesting. I just like the communication, making things happening, And then for me to do, as I reach out to people, because they kept saying, hey, I closed on this house. Hey, I need an EMD. I will say, hey, well, I'm a Gator. Let me know, whenever your next deal you need help, reach out to me. And they will say, well, bring me a deal. As of you want to do find an EMD, bring me a deal where we can.
So you're not looking to buy that house with the realtor story. Okay. That's what I'm hearing. You're looking for, like, you don't know if the buyer is going to need EMD. So I would say, why pursue that house if you don't even know if that buyer is going to need EMD? Because you don't have a buyer for that house with the realtor story.
Well,
So that was for Connect.
that was for connector, right? But then when I will, like said in this case with Jackson, I have other people that I have contacted and they said, Judith, the more you bring me leads, and if some leads go through, you will get paid your fee. And she knows I want to do a fund on EMD. So, but she rather, and I'm okay with it, she rather pay me a fee for a lead than use me as an EMD Gator, right?
Right. Well, EMD isn't for people that are. Well, I mean, I guess if you find an end buyer, but you shouldn't be looking for houses for sale. I think that's where you're looking for houses for sale to find EMD, but that's not where it's found. Have you been listening to Alexis and Abraham's videos? They talk a ton about how they find their EMD. I mean, Alexis and Abraham are kind of branching out now, but they have a ton of stuff about how do you find EMD. And a lot of it is going to a title agent, looking in the creative Facebook group to see if people are looking for EMD, but it's not looking for houses for sale.
No, I am not looking for houses for sale. I have come across people posting their houses for sale. And so I know buyers that they will tell me, hey, this is my buy box. if you come across anything, pass them to me. And I forgot all about EMDs, right? Now, I have gone to title companies, and one of them said, you need to get with a real estate agent and they will provide you with a list. That's not what I understood from the beginning, but it's fine. I am approaching other agents also to, if they know of any deals that they know that hasn't crossed the line because of the EMD, to contact me, right? So it's not only I'm not looking for houses for people to sell the houses. I'm coming across those posts. They're like, hey, Brittany, in this case, if you know of anybody that's looking for a house, this is a beautiful house, yada, yada, and I just connect with them, and I do make a relationship with her so much that she opened up and gave extra information that I think that's a lot of pain point right there. And so I reached out to somebody in the community, and she's like, here's the form, we're going to JV, let's talk. So, it's not about just EMD or finding listings or, sending leads. I'm just involving helping people that I know they say, like in this case, one person is like, man, you're so persistent, I can use you on this. So that's what I'm focused on. With Jackson, it's a different thing. With another person, it's a different thing. So I'm just being involved and active in what people's needs are. And then I hold off, like Jackson said, and I appreciate that he told me, hold off. I think I need to help you on different areas. And, at least somebody didn't sugarcoat it for me. They were straight to the point, and that's what I want. Because if I'm doing something wrong, why am I going to continue doing something that is in the wrong way and not helping somebody, right?
And so I want to jump in right there, because like that's part of the cool thing about being a connector is, I mean, I've had plenty of people bring me fix and flip deals like, hey, I need somebody to help fund my flip, and they're hitting those like I'm at 82% loan to value numbers, and I'm just like, hey, like I appreciate you bringing this to me. Like, I don't want you to like take this the wrong way. You need to understand why I can't get this funded. And when you explain it to them, one, you're making the world a better place. Okay. Don't laugh at me. Two, you're making it so that they know, okay, this is not just like, oh, this is what Jackson needs to see on the numbers before he can get it funded, but like why, right? Like, why does it need to be at 75% loan to value? If people are like inexperienced, or they just don't do refinances very often, they might not know, like, hey, 75% is pretty much what you can expect to get out of a refinance. And so in order to protect your money lenders and get them to come back and give you more business, right, to get you more deals funded, they need to feel like you're taking care of them. It's like one, you as the connector are like, you have two employers, right? When a borrower first brings you a deal and it passes that like napkin underwriting that we did earlier, you're working for the borrower. Now you're going to go find a lender. Okay. The borrower is paying you at that point. Once you found the lender, you get them on a call. The lender's like, you know what? I do want to do this deal. Let's go. You kind of in the middle, you work with the borrower a little bit, you work with the lender a little bit, and then like pretty much like the day before that your lender sends the wire to title, you have stopped working for the borrower and you now work solely for the lender. And that doesn't stop at closing. You work for the lender for the duration of the deal. Sometimes I negotiate like a little bit on the back end that the lender pays, really the borrower is really paying it, but that so that the lender knows, hey, Jack has a paycheck waiting for him at the end of the deal, that he only gets paid on if like I get paid out as the lender, right? And so for me doing my job throughout the duration of the deal means that I get paid on the back end. And some lenders like to see that. If for me it kind of depends on how much is the lender making. If the lender's only making 10 grand, then I'm like, I'm not gonna take $500 off of that, because it's like it's only 10 grand, right? If the lender's making like 40 grand, and I'd be like, hey, give me like 2 grand on the back end. Maybe it really depends on the deal. But that's something that you can negotiate with your lenders, like say, hey, I'm going to be doing all this work for you during the duration of the deal to make sure the project is coming along, to make sure that communication is still open, to make sure that if something's going off track and the timeline is off, then you know about it. You want to know about that beforehand, right? Like my borrower came to me 2 months ago and said, hey, I need help with this refinance. and his loan isn't due until November. Like, that's great. The fact that he came to me and said, hey, I'm going to need help with this refinance, like 3 months ahead of time, that's a win. That's a win for me. It's a win for him. It's a win for my lender. Everybody wins. That only was possible because we kept communication open and I was doing my job as the connector for the duration of the deal. And so like the day before your lender sends their money, you work for the lender. You stop working for the borrower. It's not, you're not their like 1099 contractor. You are now your lender's 1099 contractor. However you want to think of it, it's like your lender is now like you've put the lender in a position of risk that you think is acceptable and that they think is acceptable, but you still bear responsibility for it, right? Because they didn't find a deal on their own. You said, hey, I've underwritten it. I have double, triple checks the borrower's work. And it's part of that's relationship building. Like you're building a good relationship with your lender by making them see like, hey, Judith is taking good care of me by making sure that we're getting timely reports from the borrower, that making sure we get regular walkthroughs and pictures and like FaceTime once a week or whatever it is. Like that makes your lender feel like they can trust you to bring them more deals in the future. Even if like they see, even if you bring them deals where like, hey, I don't like this one. Like if they can see that you did work to underwrite it and you did the work and they're like, yeah, I like the comps, but I don't like the neighborhood. Like, okay, well, I'll bring you better neighborhood next time. And then they see that's all work that they like to see.
Or she will say, I don't want it, but I know somebody that will, and work it out. And Jackson, to me, honestly, I have done a lot of things and people are like, you're not getting paid for it. I was like, I wasn't doing it for the pay, And then I had Carly, before I even joined Gator, Carly was posting about RVs. I rent out my own RV. And I was like, oh, there's more than people. We have something common. And she goes, you know what, if you hear of anybody, you'll get a pay for a lead. And then we kept talking through the year. And then it's like, Judith, wouldn't you be interested to bring me leads with homes? So in my question of me wanting to bring a lead to find a EMD, it wasn't it. I was just wanting to help her to get more RVs because I will come a lot across people that want to sell their RV. They're under the water on what do you call that? Face market?
Facebook Marketplace.
Yes, I find a lot of people. I have reached like 10 people, and some are not interested. Some are, some want a lot of money, and she keeps coaching me, and she's like, Judith, how about you just start doing instead of RVs? Don't take me wrong, they're good deals, but if you can bring me homes instead of RVs, and so that's what I started joining Gator. So one thing leads to the other, and I appreciate that she saw something that is like, hey, get to something bigger. I'll pay you more, a lot more on the fee for a house lead than for an RV lead. And I was like, I can do both, So that has been my job, working with her, bringing her leads in. In maybe 30 minutes, we're going to jump on a call with a seller that got his house off market and Carly's ready to go.
Awesome. Cool. Well, so does anybody else have any kind of like last second questions? We went 20 minutes past, which is great. I think that's super cool because like it's like I said, it's my first live that I ever did, so that's kind of fun. But if there's any other questions, I posted my phone number in the message thing, the chat. It's 240-267-9796. So if y'all shoot me a text, I will try my very best to be responsive. Everybody gets busy. I have a W-2. I have a 2-year-old, a 4-month-old, and a wife in here somewhere. So I do get busy, but if I don't respond within like a couple hours, text me again and I'll be like, hey, yes, I did see this. Let's talk in 5 minutes. And it's just one of those things. So thanks everybody for coming. This was super cool. Tell your friends, I guess. I'm gonna try to do these probably like once or twice a month. I think would be cool. Just to kind of connect with people, see what everybody's doing, see if anybody needs any help with their business, whether it's a lending business or as a connector or anything else. So y'all have a good rest of your night, and thanks for coming.
thanks for having this. This is great. It's been super helpful.
Awesome. I'm glad.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Cheers.